Some days ago, when Israel charged the PLO with stalling and not finalizing plans to evacuate Beirut, they may have been right. The PLO is an organization with many different opinions. More to the point, after all the Israeli pounding that Palestinian fighters have taken, Arafat needed time to convince his men on the front line they had helped win what Arafat is said to regard as a very significant political victory. The thesis, expounded by PLO political advisors, goes like this. The president's envoy, Philip Habib, may not talk directly to Yasser Arafat, but he puts to the Israelis the PLO point of view. Recognition, say Palestinians, they are equally important. The United States supports the organization of a multinational force, possibly including U.S. Marines, to protect Palestinian civilians from right-wing Christians after the PLO security cover is removed. And finally, it's Philip Habib who's been canvassing the Arab world in search of sanctuary for the PLO fighters and their leadership. Palestinians here find the situation ironic. Suddenly, it is not Arab states, not the Soviet Union, but as they see it, the United States of America, which has become the guarantor of the PLO's political survival.
Tonight we have a special report from Geraldo Rivera, who has just returned from Lebanon, on the torment of the nation and the emergence of a leader determined to restore peace to his people.
As anyone who's seen the sights and listened to the sounds of war on their television sets for the last month knows very well, the Battle of Lebanon has been ferocious. The 3 foreign armies who fought and died here have decimated this hapless country. The big question for the Lebanese people, though, is what happens now, and whether or not they'll ever be able to rebuild this war-torn country.
Will the fighting ever stop?
Definitely it will have to stop. Definitely that we are living now the last hours of the 8 years of war. Definitely we are starting now to think about the after war.
Bashir Gemayel, commanding general of the Christian Lebanese forces, has been fighting the Palestinians and the Syrians on and off since 1975. But it took the Israeli invasion to give his side a chance of victory.
We always kept saying that Lebanon is easy to eat, but very difficult to digest and almost impossible to digest. The Syrians and the Palestinians didn't understood all that. They kept playing tricks in Lebanon. They kept playing with the fire in Lebanon. We kept telling them, don't. They never understood, and here we are.
Until very recently, it was Gemayel who was never understood. When 2020 first interviewed him a year and a half ago, he was a political unknown outside his own country. A man with a cause virtually no international diplomat or news person even wanted to hear.
Until now, the U.S. public opinion don't know that we are fighting the same combat and the same fight for the same values and the same interests.
As the United States.
As the United States. And I think that this is why we were destroyed.
A year ago or less, American officials wouldn't even return your telephone calls. What have they discovered?
I feel, and I must say to be fair, that when we started to be organized, the U.S. have started to understand us more and more. And the more united and the more organized we were, the more the U.S. were giving us a more responsible ear, and they were listening more and more to what we had to say. You are right to say that a few months ago they will even not return my call. I must say that today it's basically a different situation.
The United States government, after years of pretending Gemayel did not exist, last year officially invited him to Washington. And America's newfound interest in Gemayel is not the only thing that's changed. The moderate Arab powers now apparently see him as Lebanon's last best chance. As commander of the tough 24,000-man Christian militia, 34-year-old Sheikh Bashir is perhaps the most potent homegrown military and political force left intact in his country. A leading candidate in Lebanon's presidential election, scheduled for later this summer, he is also one of the key figures in the kaleidoscope of personalities intensely seeking an end to the current bloodshed.
As far as we are concerned, we are looking for the liberation of our country. We are looking that all the foreigners out, Syrians, Palestinians, and Israelis, and even the UNIFIL, we don't need any foreign armed presence in this country, as Lebanese, as a strong central government, as a strong central army, as once again the nation reunited, we will take care of the security of our own country. We don't need anybody in this country, and Arafat should understand that.
Is Israel your ally?
In politics, there is nothing permanent. You don't have permanent allies and permanent enemies. We are taking the maximum of advantage and benefit of the changement of the balance of power and equilibrium of power in the Lebanon.
The Lebanon is unique among nations in the region. Until the mid-70s, it was an important banking center and the playground of the Mideast, a rich, beautiful nation which for centuries performed a delicate balancing act between its diverse Christian and Muslim populations. Despite the almost continuous violence, there is a gritty determination among the Lebanese to maintain a bizarre sort of normalcy. Even now in East Beirut, you can see how citizens try to adjust. Traffic engineers, for instance, make allowances for taxis while business goes on. The beaches boom, while along the line separating Christian East from Muslim West Beirut, gunfire does not. Even at the height of the Israeli attack, there was less fighting between the Christians and their Syrian and PLO enemies than there was before last month's invasion. So despite the fact that his army has in part been trained and equipped by the Israelis, by not fighting alongside them, Gemayel is trying to demonstrate his independence.
By the late summer of 1982, the fighting had essentially ended. What remained was to find a way to remove Palestinian militiamen from Lebanon, enter the United States, France, and Italy, not the United Nations. It was hoped that these three countries could come in with small military forces, secure the area around Beirut, permit the evacuation of the PLO fighters. The operation was partially successful, although the eventual United States mission would end in tragedy in 1983, when the U.S. Marine barracks were destroyed by one of the first uses outside of Iran of a suicide bomb. Let's go to the tape.
For 2 weeks, negotiations for a PLO withdrawal continue. But Yasser Arafat prolongs the talks in an effort to win concessions from the United States and Israel. Only after heavy Israeli aerial and artillery bombardments does the PLO agree to drop its demands and leave. An international peacekeeping force comprised of French, Italian, and American soldiers is sent to ensure their safe exit. 1 week later, Bashir Gemayel is elected president of Lebanon.
The Marine Amphibious Task Force, earmarked as the American unit to help in the evacuation of the PLO from Beirut, sailed from Naples, Italy this morning. It could be off the coast of Lebanon by Thursday night, where it will join the aircraft carrier USS Independence. Pentagon sources say the Marines have been ready for weeks, but negotiators in Beirut asked the military not to send the troops until most negotiating snags had been removed. Some 800 Marines are slated to go ashore in Beirut to secure that portion of the city for which the U.S. will be responsible. That will leave 1,000 Leathernecks on board ship as a backup. If there's trouble, another 1,600 Marines now at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, are to move in quickly. No American troops are to stay longer than 30 days. Government sources say there are stringent rules for American participation. For example, if fighting breaks out while the Marines are in Beirut, they will be withdrawn immediately. The U.S. will use what force is deemed necessary to get them out safely. Another condition, if the PLO does not fully cooperate with evacuation plans, again, U.S. troops will be pulled out immediately. Finally, the Marines will not provide food, water, or medical help to the people of Beirut. Sources say the soldiers are there to keep the peace, not to provide humanitarian relief. John McWethy, ABC News, the Pentagon.